38-15 was the final. We did the stream. We were talking, I think, a lot about what jumped out to both of us, which was Ohio State's ability to defend the pass. Not just to get to Curtis Rourke and upset his rhythm, but to just basically chop that part of the Indiana offense off.
Yes.
They were able to get something going on the ground here and there. But by that point in the game, it was too little too late. Ohio State had pretty much already run away with it. They forced 3 fumbles on the Indiana side of things, 2 of which came by virtue of their own skills, I would say, on defense. 1 on a strip sack, another on a strip as there was just a standard issue running play. Guy gets ball punched out. Another that was a mishandled snap on a punt that set Ohio State up with a short field. So there were these moments for Indiana that did come back to bite them, for sure. But I think taken throughout the course of this game, the big lasting image for me is the fact that Ohio State's defense was just too much for these guys.
Yes. No, I think that's all correct. It's Ohio State at home. And if there were 2 elements of this game that Indiana wasn't quite ready to handle, it was Ohio State up front, including, Cody Simon had one of the games of his lives? He's only had one. Cody Simon, games of his life, depending on your feelings about reincarnation. And
right.
You want to go down this path? And that Indiana's secondary wasn't fully prepared to make plays against take your pick of Ibuka or Carnell Tate early on, Jeremiah Smith, especially on the edge. He had a great fly sweep kind of action. Like, it was Indiana looking not quite ready, which is kind of okay, and Ohio State answering the call. Now, if you want silver lining for Indiana, it's that the defense mostly played all right, all things considered, with what Ohio State can do on offense. That it was an incredible punt return from Caleb Downs, nothing to do with Indiana's defense. And it was, I think, a 7-yard field after a snap slipped through a punter's hands. That's right. That accounted for 14 points. And so the score indicates 38-15. I think the over hit because of that late touchdown, that's right, if memory serves, for Ohio State. But by and large, the Indiana defense belonged on that field. I also want to give credit to Ohio State's offensive line. And even though they weren't really able to run the ball with any sort of force or consistency, Will Howard was clean. Yeah. This is a team down 3 starting offensive linemen, including the guy who started out playing left tackle and the guy who started playing center, arguably the 2 most important positions on the offensive line. And Will Howard was clean. Will Howard had time. It was not the story of this game. It was Indiana's offensive line and whatever Curtis Rourke's responsibilities are in terms of protection being engulfed by an incredible performance from Ohio State up front, who look like they could beat anybody in the country specifically because of what they can do when Jim Knowles seems to call the defense he wants to call.
Yeah, to your point, Will Howard, 22 of 26 passing, 201, 2 touchdowns, did have the pick.
Right.
Curtis Rourke, 8 of 18 passing for just 68 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
Yeah.
You take away that side of Indiana, it makes them sort of pedestrian, and that's what Ohio State was able to do. And I agree. I mean, I think 2 things can be true at once. Indiana did not look worthy as an offensive unit against this defense, but defensively, which has very quietly been the bigger triumph this year for the Indiana Hoosiers, they've played pretty good defense the full way through.
They did.
I thought they did, all things considered, a pretty good job. It may not appear that way if you look at the box score, but if you watch the game and if you understand these numbers in context, I don't think it was a bad performance by the Indiana defense at all. And I guess the broader point now, and the one that many people are going to try and argue over the next week or so, or at least till we get to Tuesday, did this harm Indiana's playoff chances at all? Should it harm Indiana's playoff chances at all? I would argue, given what else we saw around college football, especially
I was going to say, in that moment, perhaps.
In the moment,
given
perhaps.
The totality of the day, perhaps not.
Yeah, given that we saw those 3 losses on the SEC side, given that we saw a fair amount of chaos transpire in the Big 12 as well, they're going to fall. They should fall in the standings. But I think by the end of the conversation here, Indiana is still probably a playoff team.
I think likely, yeah. I think given that you're going to start comparing them to 3 lost teams at a certain point with Alabama and Ole Miss, and I don't know, we'll see what happens with Tennessee. They have Vandy left, and I don't know. We'll see. Georgia has Georgia Tech, who likes making things weird. Who snuck by NC State. Did they not Thursday night in a weird
30
one?
30 to 29, yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. By the way, just on the Jim Knowles thing, real savvy move to get to the quarterback before he can throw it and have your own corners get called for PI. You can't commit PI if you get sacked before a quarterback throws it. You can get defensive holding, of course.
Yeah.
But that's a nice little solution to some early over-aggression from Ohio State corners, or namely Iggy, one corner. And I came away thoroughly impressed with Ohio State, and still impressed with Indiana, especially on defense. And the Indiana run game, I think, exposed a little bit in terms of maybe some over-aggression at times, or not staying gap sound up front for Ohio State on defense. But you knew that wasn't going to last for 4 quarters.
You knew that wasn't going to last. And by the way, by the time they started doing that,
yeah,
it was pretty much ball game.
They needed to connect more consistently through the air if they had any chance,
Yeah.
and they just didn't have. Literally, didn't have a chance. They didn't have the seconds to do it.
Yeah, you weren't going to come down from, at that point, 21 points, whatever it was, running the football, not against Ohio State.